So, Governor Cuomo, might have heard of him. He's the governor of my state, New York. Very popular because of during COVID, he was one of the few that actually kind of like, well, we were very used to Trump, right? And we're used to people going off like crazy and not making making much sense and just talking like an idiot. So when we had someone like Cuomo that came up with his strong Italian daddy vibes, it was a lot easier to listen to him. And you know what? I'm at fault for that too because I definitely did. And mind you, I'll give him that. He's actually really good at public speaking and reassurance. He is still very much a lib, and I was brought in into some comfort with him on it. And I will admit, especially early on in the pandemic, I was watching his broadcasts daily. And I'm glad that he did that. I legitimately, I'm glad that he did that. I think that it was very wise and smart. And I think that dog's walking through here like an idiot. What? It was wise. It was smart. It helped people feel informed. Like people were actually doing things. In a sense, yes, that's posturing, but it was important to do. And there were a lot of talks. So there's two big things to go over with Cuomo right now. But going into his past, he's already had major issues, major corporate issues with housing, especially in New York. And if you know anything about housing in New York, it's New York City specifically, but in New York in general, it's insanely confusing, frustrating, and landlords have a fuck ton of power. And it had been known that even with rent-controlled places, people would try to get them to move out by just making people's lives hell around them. A lot of places around here in the city as well have the issue of no one actually even living in them. A lot of people from out of state that are or out of country, rich, that use it as laundering. And that's a big thing in like Midtown New York City. So, you know, like 42nd Street and stuff like that. Times Square, yada, yada. Central Park South's really known for that as well, which is Billionaires Row. But so many people don't even live in those houses. For a long time, there was a not for a good chunk of time, there was this thing called the Poor Door, where they'd get subsidies for allowing lower earners to have more affordable housing, but then they made it so you could only go through this one like shitty door in the back, couldn't share the main foyer or the backyard, and made you like a second-class citizen. There's been a lot of these issues in New York, and Cuomo's been on the other side of that for a long time as well. A big thing that came up during COVID was people saying that you killed grandma, right? Sending people to nursing homes and keeping COVID cases there. And because of that, though, there was like, or was he not sending them to the park because we had large facilities in the park? Did it not to the Comfort, I believe it was, which is a hospital ship. And I do know a thing about these actually because they're Navy hospital ships. They're actually a very, it's kind of like a dream duty of any corpsman like myself or a Navy medic to go on the Comfort or the Mercy, which is the two hospital ships that the Navy has. Apparently those were underutilized. I want to look more into that. But people were saying that it was out of vindictiveness, of just not wanting to work with Trump. although they had worked with him before. Now, there were people that had been brought to the nursing homes, and it did kill people, and it did end up in deaths. Not happy about that, but I also view it from the lens of like, there was so much of this that we didn't know. That being said, New York should have closed way earlier and did have the information to act on that. But what we found out from one of his aides is that there was actually a lot more deaths, much more of a concern. And, you know, I want to criticize Florida as well, because this stuff doesn't just end because a lib did one over here as well. This has been an issue state by state, right? Florida is, some people will say it's not so true, but like there was a scientist who was then fired who had been posting data that was very contradictory to Florida's, and then they sent cops to her home. That's a little bit more wrong to me. I think that there's a lot going on there that seems evidently like very corrupt. With what happened with Cuomo in regards to the nursing home deaths, what it seems like to me is like there was a mistake made, which is understandable. Not saying that those deaths were understandable, but saying that these things do happen and were going to happen and have happened in every single state. There have been issues, right? I also want to bring up that New York City has been exceptionally strong in this. As someone who has lived here during this pandemic, we have been through a lot because we were that epicenter for such a long time. And it's, you know, moving again now, but I understand like in the logistics between it all, it's crazy. So I could understand and give a little leeway. However, when then you decide to cover up that evidence of even more deaths, it then seems like you're trying to cover for yourself, or from what it sounded like was to not give Trump ammo. It seemed to be a tactical thing, especially since the Trump administration held off from giving us funds, which is New York gives some of the most money to the country, the city specifically, and we needed money for our trains to continue running. Still do. And Trump said that he didn't want to give it to us because we are an anarchy state and stuff like that, like they did to Portland, which is also one of my other home cities. Both New York and Portland have been my home, and to hear them called like that and just thought as a secondhand because of their liberalness or whatever, I understand that there was a sense of tactical weight behind it. However, there was still lies, there was still deceit. Now, I want to cover that here a little bit more on it, like the numbers and whatnot. But the other reason why Cuomo's in the news is for a Me Too sexual assault allegations, right? So okay. So this is Lindsay Boylan. I'm actually really interested in her career as well. She used to work for she used to work for Cuomo, and now she is running for I believe for Manhattan Borough Pres, which for those who don't live in New York City, the borough president is kind of like a mini mayor. Because New York is so big, it's kind of got, hold on. Because New York's so big, it's got obviously a large government process and system. And so, along with having the mayor, like Mayor Bill de Blasio, you also have borough presidents. And if you understand, Manhattan is a borough. It's often not called a borough because it's often referred to as the city, even though all of New York City is part of New York City, and it's a city. And this is so weird to, I'm sure, for like non-New Yorkers, so I'm sorry. And then there's the boroughs, or what they call the outer boroughs. Boroughs being, and it comes from a Dutch word, but the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island, and Manhattan, because it is a borough as well, right? It's the 5 boroughs. Staten Island has tried to actually secede a couple times. A lot of people from New York proper don't like people from Staten Island because it's separate, and the culture is vastly different. It's not connected to the trains. You can only get there by ferry, and it's actually where a lot of the cops live. And so there's a large cop population there, and so there's kind of a feeling that they are not part of the city. And also, going back into the whole like police should be from their communities, kind of where that whole issue is, why we have like this whole armada of cops, and they all live on Staten Island. So Lindsay Boylan came out with an allegation saying that Cuomo had mistreated her, told her some pretty explicit, I will just say like sexual assault, but as very explicit in the way of like coming on to her very aggressively. But she had kind of like said, put it to the side, and I don't really want to address it too much. And then she did. And it would seem like there's more that has come out as well. I'm kind of curious to see. I know that she had a Medium article on it. I dig this vibe. I like this is licensed music too, so I get to keep it on. So, yeah, now he has 2 allegations. And
a new sexual harassment.
There was, I wonder if I saved this. Hold on. I think it's so ridiculous. And this was bound to happen, right? But of course, we're now going to have a lot of libs making other libs and leftists and people that are sincere feel really gross, because you're having now people saying, oh, this seems, because so many people were very pro Cuomo and saying that he needed to run for president, that they wanted him to be president. Hold on, where is this video? Or not video, but and so of course a lot of liberal hypocrisy right now. And this is why I say, like, don't associate yourself with libs. But, oh, did they? Okay, now. Hold on. I'm trying to find this fucking thing. But basically, you have a lot of... here we are. Okay. You have a lot of libs going, oh, well, did she really? This kind of seems like a political hit. Or this kind of stinks. Like, and by that, I mean, like this. Lindsay Boylan and Charlotte Bennett's who I believe is the other woman, so we'll hear from that in just a second. Detailed accounts of sexual harassment by Governor Cuomo are extremely serious and painful to read. There must be an independent investigation, not only led by an individual selected by the governor, but by the Office of the Attorney General. And then this just random woman here. Me thinks something stinks here. Appearance of an attempt by operatives to take down Andrew Cuomo, and who would have greater motivation? You remember? So there's a lot of this like, well, it's okay. And this is where Republicans get their ammunition, because it's, you know, a bit true when they say, oh, well, they don't actually care about those things. We know that the politicians don't. We should, okay? I'm not saying eat our own. Like, there's plenty of times that we shouldn't, like I think a good example of like maybe that there should have been lighter standards was with, why can't I think of his name right now? Al Franken, who, if you remember, a couple of years ago, had a bit of a Me Too incident. Was not really necessarily sexual assault or harassment, but there were very inappropriate images when a woman was sleeping, kind of like looking like he was grabbing her breasts. He apologized thoughtfully, and the woman also said, you know what, it's not a big deal, but, you know, and they were happy that he came out with an apology. He was terminated from his Senate seat. And I know that sounds like really gross, but like that he did that, but like of all people too, like Al Franken was a former comedian. Like, you kind of see where it kind of came from. Should it have happened? By no, of course not. But it's not even, you know, funny. But at least he was able to admit to it and apologize. And then you have libs coming out and defending this type of stuff just because they like Cuomo, when Cuomo has a terrible track record with, well, just in general, and we just want to defend him because like he was the glorious, the, you know, most glorious lib during the summer. We can't do that. And similarly, there was another tweet that was like this. I obviously not everyone's like this, but this. Blue by check marks, by the way, on Twitter. So different having military action under Biden. No middle school level threats on Twitter. Trust Biden and his team's competence. I like it. When you swat a mosquito, you don't call a press conference to talk about it. You just do what needs to be done and move on. Meaning that they preferred it when, you know, the annoying thing was that Trump actually talked about it, which was annoying, and how he talked about it was very destabilizing around the world, especially since he did it on Twitter. Yes, I'll give it that. But the fact that they're almost saying like, yeah, he shouldn't have to call conferences or just like, you know, snap his fingers and do military strikes or be like how they're continuing this, these disgusting wars that no one needs. Does not do anything except for bolster our economy for the richest individuals and richest companies. We don't need this. And to go on here and defend it and just like jack off about it is ridiculous. So hold them to it. We can't be doing this. We can't be glorifying this. Teach the libs how to be better. If they call themselves a progressive and then simultaneously advocate for this, or not going with believe all women, which by that I mean, and this is a valid point that also came up in this, by actually hearing women out and not just saying you think it might be some psyop, then get them on the right path or tell them that they're going to be left behind, because this is not what we need. Look, if you're down to defend this, what is your position? You're just playing teams. That's it. We don't want teams. We want actual progress. If you do that, then you don't fucking actually give a shit. If you're okay with Biden attacking Syria, if you're okay with this minimum wage not going in, you don't care. So, anyways, with heated gaming moment. Yeah, the other one comes up with Tara Reid, right? Not the actress like Tara Reid, but she was the person that was accusing Biden. And it didn't come up very much. It came up a little bit during the elections. Trump campaign tried to bring it up more. Some people were very like doing the same thing. What if it's a bit of a psyop? I think I might have even a little bit, mainly because her story was so weird. And that's also why I'm still going back to that and thinking that it's not exactly the same thing. Tara Reid had changed her story a lot, but not only that, many people that she had interacted with told them several different stories, and how she felt about it, how she felt about Joe Biden, which she actually often brought up about how she really liked Joe Biden and cared about him. But that is one thing that I would like to bring up into this, and something that I looked at, I did find curious, which is a woman acting so strange about this. Not just a woman, but just anybody, but her specifically as a woman acting so strange about this, doesn't necessarily, honestly, in some ways, kind of points to that possible sexual assault. Just because you can very much be traumatized in, idolizing the people that have hurt you, or makes you feel uncomfortable about how you're saying and what you're saying it to people. So there's plenty of other psychological things that come into it. That said, there's not a lot of evidence. There wasn't a lot of proof. There was some stuff apparently that needed to get pulled that never did, but that was not Biden. It was the Senate that prevented that intel from coming out. However, let's face it. Well, to be fair, the Senate was majority Republican at the time. So, however, they're also gonna, I don't know, it just makes me think that there maybe wasn't something there. They definitely work hand in hand with each other a lot of times. And I don't see that I definitely see the Republicans covering for Joe. And so they might have. But I mean, let's face it, they definitely wanted a Trump presidency, and it would have benefited them to release information that would have shown that to help give credence to Tara Reid's claims. Right now, it doesn't seem like there's anything there. Evidence is really hard on these things, and I feel bad because, women should come forward. And I encourage and hope that in the future, these women would feel comfortable enough, and that we can make the spaces comfortable enough for them to come out sooner, because then there's more evidence and it's much easier to do it. But I understand it was from a much different time where we treated any woman that came out with such allegations like shit, and still often do. Like, let's not look at how they're already looking at Lindsey Boylan and whatnot, like I brought up. But yeah, no. We just have to wait. And maybe, if anything, if there are other incidences with Joe Biden, that Tara Reid incident maybe might inspire somebody else to come out. Might not, because she was kind of labeled as crazy. And this is also why we need to be careful and not do that and not attack these people. Yes, those who lie about it make it way worse for everyone else, but we need to thoroughly vet and make it feel like people are not going to be destroyed for coming out with information. So, anyways.
Harassment allegation against New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. The New York Times saying a second former Cuomo aide has now come forward. ABC's Stephanie Ramos is here with the latest. Good morning to you, Stephanie.
Eva, good morning. The three-term governor was just facing criticism for the way his office reported nursing home deaths during the pandemic. Now, a second former aide is accusing Governor Cuomo of inappropriate conduct. This morning, a second former aide to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is coming forward accusing him of sexual harassment. According to the New York Times, 25-year-old Charlotte Bennett says Cuomo asked her questions sexual in nature last spring, reportedly asking her whether she had monogamous relationships and if she ever had sex with older men. According to the paper, Bennett told her parents and friends during that time. After an encounter in June, her friend asked if Cuomo had been physical. The Times reporting Bennett responded via text message, no, but it was like the most explicit it could be. The paper also saying Bennett reported the encounter to Cuomo's chief of staff. Bennett was reportedly transferred to another department until she left the administration altogether in November. The governor's special counsel and senior advisor saying in a statement, Ms. Bennett received the transfer she requested to a position in which she had expressed a long-standing interest and was thoroughly debriefed on the facts, which did not include a claim of physical contact or inappropriate sexual conduct. In a statement Saturday, Cuomo denies the allegation, saying he was trying to be a mentor to her, adding, quote, I never made advances toward Miss Bennett, nor did I ever intend to act in any way that was inappropriate. This comes after Cuomo denied allegations from another former aide, Lindsey Boylan, who detailed allegations of sexual harassment, including an unwanted kiss. Cuomo denying those allegations during a press conference in December.
It's just not true.
Boylan reacting to Cuomo's latest accuser, posting, I am with you, Charlotte. We are with you, always. You are not going to derail or destroy any more lives, Governor Cuomo.
Charlotte Bennett says she decided to make her allegations public in part because she wanted to counter the way Mr. Cuomo, quote, wields his power. Governor Cuomo has requested an outside review of the matter and is asking New Yorkers to await the findings before making any judgments. Some New York Democrats even saying the governor should not be the one to appoint that investigator in that review. Dan.
Stephanie Ramos, thank you so much.
Well, hey there, GMA fans.
He
Robin
should
Roberts
definitely not be the one to appoint that investigator. That's the same thing. Like, I really hate how much executive control that we can get in many different forms of politics. But that was a big thing with even Trump. It's like, well, we want to put in this person. No, they definitely shouldn't be able to pick the person that investigates this. And it should absolutely be investigated. So.